Madam President, 47 years ago today, a group of 600 freedom-loving men and women set out on a march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. The purpose of the march was calling for an end to discrimination and violence against African Americans. Among those peaceful protesters was a young man by the name of John Lewis, now Congressman John Lewis. His life has been one of truly a great civil rights leader, outstanding legislator, and a patriot beyond excellence. Only 6 blocks from the church where the march began, they were met at Edmund Pettus Bridge by police dogs, fire hoses, and clubs. The terrible day of violence of that day, known as Bloody Sunday, was broadcast across the country. March 1965 marked a turning point in the civil rights movement as Americans cried out against the injustice and bloodshed they saw on television. Later that month, about 25,000 courageous souls finally completed that 12-mile march from Selma to Montgomery that started on Bloody Sunday. And 6 months later, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. A year ago, Madam President, I was privileged to lock arms with Congressman John Lewis and Congressman Jim Claiborne, 2 men who I admired deeply, as we reenacted the march across the Pettus Bridge. It was really a humbling experience, as John Lewis, with throngs of people, but we were together and explaining to me what he remembered from that day. As we were starting up the bridge, there was a drugstore that doesn't exist anymore, but a lot of whites were gathered there, and they were, of course, up to mischief. And John Lewis had on his back, backpacks were not very familiar in those days, but he had a little backpack on his back, and he had a book. He thought he perhaps would be arrested, and as he had been many times, and he'd have something to read while he was in jail. He had a book and an apple in that backpack. But of course, he was beaten very, very badly. And no one will ever know what happened to the backpack and the apple and the book. It was really a humbling experience, I repeat, one that I will never forget. And on this day, I think we should all pause to think, while we have come a long ways, we have a long ways to go to make sure that we have civil rights for everyone in America.